Let me tell you a story. Suppose you had a subscription to some service that you find really useful or fun and use a lot. Because it's an online subscription model, it's convenient to be able to use it from anywhere in the world. Then one day, something changes. Now, because your needs for this service were fairly simple and straightforward, you only ever needed the lowest tier of service called Basic. There are premium and gold tiers too that you've never really looked at, and you ignored the occasional special offer email trying to upsell you because the Basic tier does everything you wanted. And besides, they're kind of pricey. An upgrade was never really on the agenda for you. Then one day you get a message saying that it will unfortunately be necessary to increase the price of your subscription. Not fantastic news, but inflation is a thing, so you just sigh and shrug and carry on. The notification also mentions new features that are coming too, which the supplier is certain you'll be really excited about. So you figure that although you don't feel like there are any additional features you really need, maybe the new price is somehow justified. Products get improved and more expensive and command a higher price. It happens. The next day, you go to use the thing, and it turns out that one of the new features is a pop-up containing a screaming goat that appears every time you open the program, and also every time you try to start a new round of work in the program. It's really annoying. Of course, your first reaction is to look for an option to turn off the screaming goat pop-up, but there isn't one. There is just an option to make it 10% smaller. That's all. Frustrated by this, you search online for advice, and eventually you find some information suggesting that you might be able to downgrade your subscription to a tier that doesn't have screaming goats in it. That puzzles you because you can't see the downgrade option anywhere in your account page, and it looks like you're already on the lowest subscription tier. But you contact the sales team anyway via online chat, and after spending an hour waiting and another half hour of them explaining that everyone thinks screaming goats are fun, and why don't you just try to love them, they somewhat reluctantly downgrade your subscription to a tier that you didn't even know existed, called Basic Goat Free. It's not very well advertised. In fact, it's almost like they've hidden this subscription tier away. You're initially a little concerned that you might have lost some features you do want in the downgrade, but it turns out that the Basic Goat Free subscription level is identical in every way to what you had before, what they just used to call Basic. That is the version you were using all along. Price is the same as you were paying too. In fact, it soon becomes really obvious that what they really did was to upgrade you to the middle tier subscription without asking you, and also rename that middle tier to Basic, and hide away the original lowest Basic tier, so it sounds like the only thing that changed was the price going up. But the price only went up because they forced you to upgrade to the middle tier and then renamed it. That would be bad, right? Here's the thing. This scenario is not hypothetical. This is what Microsoft just did with their 365 product. A few weeks back, I got a message saying my subscription price was going up from £79.99 to £104.99. I sighed and shrugged, but accepted it. A short while later, a new feature appeared. Copilot, Microsoft's AI product. Now, for me, Copilot is just simply unnecessary. I do not need a thing that writes for me in Microsoft Word. Writing is what I do when I open Word. It's what I want to do. It isn't some onerous burden that I need to be relieved of. It's the reason I use the software. I don't even care if Copilot can do the job better than I can. Spoiler, it can't, but we'll get to that. I don't want it doing my writing for me. I use Word specifically because I have something inside of myself that I want to write down. Now, of course, you don't have to use Copilot, but also you can't really turn it off or even make it shut up. About half of the times I opened one of the Office apps, I got this pop-up announcing Copilot and begging me to use it. I dismissed the pop-up only to have it appear again and again and again. Also, there was this sort of banner that appeared every time I opened a new blank document, and Copilot was there in the margin on every new line, waiting to presumably butt in and do something. I looked for options to turn this all off, and there were a couple of them, and whilst they did make some difference to the installed desktop versions of the apps, the online versions had no such configuration, and there was just no way to tell it to get out of my face. At least with the annoying paperclip thing, Clippy, or Clip-It as it was called here in the UK, back in Office 97 or whatever, you could tell it to go away, and it would. Now, this is not specifically an anti-AI rant, and if you find Copilot useful, that's great. But for me, it's just an unnecessary inconvenience and a distracting nuisance. And the rest of the story is the same thing as I just told you with the screaming goat. Apparently some enterprise customers do see an option to downgrade on the subscription to a classic offering, but there was no such option for me as a non-business user. I contacted support and waited a total of 3 hours to get to a live chat with someone who tried to persuade me on the benefits of screaming goats, the higher price subscription. One of those benefits supposedly being free AI credits, except they're not really free if the sub price is higher, are they? Side note, I only ever used 1 or 2 of those free AI credits to ask Copilot to write detailed instructions for turning off Copilot. It produced a very lucid guide on how to adjust settings and options, but unfortunately those settings and options simply don't exist. This is one of the key issues with generative AI, and one of the reasons I don't bother with it for writing anything serious. It has a tendency to write things that sound real, but are just pure fabrication. This problem's called hallucination. But I digress. After about half an hour, we got to the point where the salesperson agreed to downgrade me to a plan called 365 Family Classic, which entailed cancelling my subscription and starting a new one on the lower tier. After that change had gone through, Copilot just went away. Which is what I wanted all along. But it was abundantly clear that the 365 Family Classic level of function was just the exact same thing I'd been on before the changes. Right down to the expansion options and prices for cloud storage. Even the subscription price was back down to $79.99. So there was no real price hike on my existing plan. What really happened is they forcibly upsold me to a more expensive plan, at the same time as renaming that plan to the same name as the one I'd been on, and renamed the old plan Classic, and pretty much hid it away. My problem here is not that the price went up, or that AI exists, or that big companies are making everything a subscription. It's just that what happened here was plain dishonest. And it feels like something that should be illegal. But there may even be some bit of small print in a set of terms that I've already accepted somewhere that says they can do this. But my point here is that if you have to use force to make customers use your amazing new features, maybe they aren't so amazing after all. I suspect they've done this because people aren't as interested in Copilot as Microsoft would like them to be, so perhaps they just decided to force it on people and make them pay for it too. Of course, there will be people who will say, "What did you expect? It's Microsoft." Or, "Don't you understand what a subscription model is?" And I get it. It's not by any means the first time they or a big company like them has done a thing that was bad. Don't imagine that I'm shocked by any of what I just described, or that I've only just discovered how subscriptions work, because I'm not really complaining. I'm not angry. This is just information. This is not the rant of someone who fears change. I've spent my whole adult life determined not to unthinkingly or fearfully resist technological changes. You may have heard me say before that I was one of the few people who just adapted to Windows 8 and got along fine with it. In fact, I was a little bit sad to upgrade away from it when Windows 10 and 11 came along. But upgrade I did because, as I say, I've spent my whole adult life determined not to unthinkingly or fearfully resist technological change. So no, this is just a bit of info for anyone else that's recently had a price hike in their 365 personal or family plan and also has no use for or desire to use Copilot. You should probably be able to downgrade to Personal Classic or Family Classic, even if the option to do that is not shown in your subscription page. You just need to get in touch with the sales team at Microsoft and ask them to make it happen, and probably have to sit through a little bit of evangelism about AI credits and whatnot. Or, don't. If you do find Copilot genuinely useful, maybe it's worth it for you. I'm not here to try to change your mind on that. As for me, though, this has made me think about what I will do in the longer term. I've been using Microsoft products since Windows 3.1, for better or sometimes worse. Office 365 has made it quite convenient for me to write and create documents without having to carry the latest version with me. The script for this video was written on 3 different computers over the course of 2 days, but I think maybe it's finally time to wean myself off Microsoft products completely. All of my computers bar one are running Linux now, and the one Windows machine I have doesn't really need to be Windows. I don't have to provide IT support for Windows users anymore. Other cloud storage options exist. The web-based document editing in Office 365 is not so easy to replace. I'd probably switch to Google Docs if I didn't suspect that Google is on the same AI integration trajectory as Microsoft, but I'm sure there's some solution. Maybe it's time to cut the cord. I hope this has been interesting or useful. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.